So we're in first place.
We actually were. We are. I mean, we won the most points.
We added it up.
Is that what the big daddy said?
I checked, yeah.
Told me about
We started this off by Tim saying he hates skinning chickens.
I really hate it.
I mean, how many kids in America can say that, you know? I really hate skinning chickens, Dad.
Enough. I think if there were more chickens in the ghettos, we would not have as near as crime a problem as we do.
Just if there were chickens running around in the ghetto.
Yeah, I mean, if there were just chickens all around, you know, yeah.
Just go in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's because it's dark.
Just running and wandering in the gutters.
People just grab one for everything we do.
Just like helicopters that come over occasionally and replenish. Just dropping chickens. And like they'd be injured chickens when they drop. Of course, and that big.
It's pretty easy to get. Even your homeless person who had various afflictions could catch one.
Isn't that what they did in Afghanistan? They dropped a bunch of chickens. A bunch of pamphlets saying, "We didn't mean to hurt you with these chickens."
They were like,
These are not bombs, these are chickens.
it would be like every like 100 yards it'd be like bombs, and these 100 yards, the next 100 yards would be chickens. You know, it's like it would be like partially exploded chickens, like in a 25-yard radius, and you could go and get that. You know, it's kind of like "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" when they get out and they're like running, trying to catch some chickens to eat. Yeah, you know what I realized was that mammals have eggs, but they just keep them inside of themselves. That's kind of freaky to think of that. You know, it's like, yeah, we have eggs. We just walk around with them. You know, like you could crack the egg essentially by like if you find a pregnant woman and just like totally punch her like as hard as you can. You could destroy her.
By the
egg.
time she's pregnant, though, she's really in an egg anymore. It's various stages of embryo.
But it's still in an egg-like environment.
But the actual egg is before she even gets pregnant.
Yeah, technically, but wouldn't you say though that in the development of the fetus to that point, it's like an egg-like?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like it's essentially like it's the same as like. You know, with
it's
birds,
a fertilized egg, essentially.
right? Well, with birds, like they grow in the egg to the point that by the time they peck out, they can almost like start to walk out of the egg, right? So it's like they're technically more advanced by the time they get out of their egg than when human babies come out.
Well, that's
they're
one thing. I mean, you probably saw too with raising your child. It's amazing to me is how these kids grow up so fast, but they're so dependent. Human babies are just like helpless little.
Yeah, they're born way too early.
Jeez.
You know the reason they're
caribou
born
can
way too
run
early.
right off there was born within a few hours.
Because as the brain evolved and the language instincts made the brain bigger and bigger and bigger, women had to start pushing the babies out earlier and earlier and earlier.
Otherwise, it's too big of a head.
It's basically pushing out a fetus.
Yep.
You know, the baby isn't even, because most mammals you look at, like you're saying, when you push them out, they're like almost can walk immediately, or you can start to...
You push out a lot of mammals, do you?
Well, I'm saying...
Do you, Joe? You push out a lot of mammals, eh?
No, I'm just saying that if you look at the mammals who push themselves out, push their offspring out, I don't push out any mammals at all. But no.
Keep them in. I like them.
But yeah, I try to keep them in, but you know. But no, they do. I mean, that's the mammal strategy. It would be a total disadvantage to like have a mammal come out and it's like totally helpless, and you're like, what do? We can't run away. You know.
Human baby's worse than a chimp. I mean, at least a chimp can hold on and stay as the mother runs around and does her stuff. Can at least hold on. Human baby can't even do that.
Right.
Move over here. There's a little bit more light here, and we get away from the field.
I got
I got the guy that's gonna blow Billy Bob out of the water.
But that's one of the problems.
Ready?
Here we are, educated bowlers.
Got a guy.
Wait, before Bam goes in the guy, we're back to educated bowlers, and for some reason Billy Bob has
Yeah.
his
The shadow of
titillated
Billy Bob looms large.
conversation.
See, I think this guy's good because Lupe probably thinks he's at the right body mass, and he's,
Who's that?
you know,
He's built.
George Clooney. Better than Billy Bob, yes.
In one film.
You know what?
He did one good film.
Tolerable in one
Out
film.
of sight,
Out of Sight.
Oh, come on. That's an Elmore Leonard.
but made it to a decent movie.
Oh, I wasn't going to swear anymore.
You know what? It's like comparing apples to oranges. I mean, Billy Bob. I mean, I have nothing against his acting and his talent. The problem is when you Monsters Ball was an interesting movie, and I think what was great about it was that it got people to talk about it and think about it. But I mean, to say it's great like Sling Blade or anything else he's done, no. I think it's a major failure in a sense that it had the potential to really show some aspect of not only race relations, but I mean this family story of loss, and it failed because it just fell into the stereotypes, and to me it became more heinous than the fucking Uncle Tom's Cabin or Cabin in the Sky. I mean,
What's Cabin in the Sky?
What's he?
it's an old 20s film that's an adaptation of Uncle Tom's Cabin, and it's horrible. I mean, it's just nothing but the major stereotypes. I mean, I could say, if again put up against any other movie, it's great, but yet is that the monitor? I mean, is that the scale we're going to use to say what is a good movie? I mean, we're settling for mediocre here.
Would you say that Billy Bob Thornton haunts you?
No, I like Billy Bob, and I think Billy Bob made a great attempt. All I'm saying is that I saw Monster Ball, and it was like,
write it.
I mean, it was like, well, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying Monster Ball, whether Billy Bob wrote it or not, to me was a well done movie that basically reinforced the stereotype of the white patriarchal male. I mean,
You guys are ruining it for me. I haven't seen it.
I didn't like how it just jumped from the guy's son shoots himself right in front of him, and then all of a sudden change, and they never really come back to that. And all of a sudden this guy who's rooted in racism and all this shit they're trying to show you, all of a sudden becomes this guy who's like supposedly, nice guy. Yeah, that might be a life-changing experience, but it doesn't happen overnight, and that's what I didn't like.
Blows. Was that the phrase we're using? Blowing Billy Bob?
Blows Billy Bob out of the water.
He is of a different generation, but he's very spry.
Well, we're going for Billy Bob.
Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman, yeah, I mean, but there are very few people who will be able to say at the end of their lives that they did as many bad films.
Michael Caine will probably.
yeah, there you go, Michael Caine, and he's even said it.
He had his moment, but what he did was become these actors who they're themselves. I hate that. Not all of them.
Yeah, but
De Niro, all of them.
occasionally-
They become themselves. They're playing that standardized character, and every time you see Gene Hackman and Robert De Niro even nowadays, it's like you can't get her beyond them.
I think they
Even
can.
Clint Eastwood, all those guys, they're them. They're themselves. I would rather see some guy off the stage from frickin' Peoria who's brand new and boom, in your face.
That's why I love the Man Who Wasn't There, and why I appreciate Billy Bob Thornton so much, is that he's done stuff all over the place, like non-talking barber guy, retarded killer guy, and then he's done this like...
He's never played Tom Cruise.
Well, I think he has. I haven't seen any.
He's never been John Wayne.
I haven't seen any of the mainstream films he's in, but my impression is that in those films he's doing more.
I don't think he's ever
stuff.
played a detective, which of course is the
Like
standard by which
Well, you got to see Monsters Ball, because he's not a detective, but he's a prison official.
Well, I know he's a prison guard.
Yeah.
Well, I think
What about John Travolta?
What about him?
Interesting actor. I mean, like Hackman, capable of being in just some god awful things.
He had a few
No,
brief
I wouldn't
moments.
say like Hackman at all.
Like Hackman in that sense. I mean,
No,
he's
Travolta
not
could
very
never turn
selective.
something that's not good into something watchable.
You're like
To
some
me.
boys that can use another picture of you. I can tell.
You're trying to push it on us.
Let's go beyond Billy Bob because
Yeah,
you know.
Gene Hackman. The thing I just saw, there was somebody told me to go and rent this. It was that family film that he was in.
Royal
Royal Tenenbaums. Yeah. It was a terrible film, but Gene Hackman was guilty. It was a terrible film. It just didn't work. It just did not work. It was
Maybe you
just
didn't
like,
understand it.
oh,
I think we
I
talked about
understood
this
it.
last
It was like amusing at first. They had a freaky family at first, and then like it like just goes. It's just like, okay, it was just like, you know, how long can you sit there? I'd rather see somebody do a stand-up routine than try to say, okay, I'll have a movie which is a stand-up routine, which has no cohesion. It has no
stand-up routine. They weren't there telling jokes.
What the movie meant nothing. It had no meaning at all. It just ended.
Like Happiness.
It just ended. Happiness had
Oops, sorry guys.
many
A
meanings.
movie has to have meaning to be worthwhile.
Yeah, that's why I
It has
watched
to
it.
have meaning to each
I
and
mean,
every viewer.
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, I
I'm
mean-
saying that's the ultimate is when you have a movie that like has a plot, has a trajectory, and that it has a meaning. It goes from one situation.
Here's an issue.
Right, but-
there's no resolution, and at the end, I'm going, I don't buy this at all. I mean, what a waste of my fucking
That's
time.
exactly
That's
the
the point.
problem with movies that try to mean something.
No, that's not the
Life
problem.
means nothing. Tenenbaum says as much about the
So we
human
should
condition
all movies
as
should be Robin
anything.
Williams stand-up then. You know,
Hey,
that's what they should be. Hey, why even attempt to put
Tim, I
together
agree
a
with
plot?
you in that life in general at the end probably really doesn't mean a whole lot. But there are times in your life where the meaning does become important, and that does matter. And so I think you can write something that does fit to the human.
I mean, you want to talk about
but at the end of the day, it doesn't really
There
fucking
is
matter.
a human
And the
condition.
people at
And
Hallmark
we
do
care
that
about
writing every single day.
You want to talk about a movie that was, I mean, that had some sort of meat to it. I mean, let's talk about movies like Dr. Zhivago. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, you talk about brilliance and not only in,
I would talk mostly about foreign films if I were
Right,
to talk about
exactly.
films that I love the
But I
most.
mean,
Most Chinese films these are the best films I've seen. Raise the Red Lantern, incredible film. There are all kinds of, Chinese film is much better than
also
American.
Kurosawa films too.
Yeah.
I mean, Dursu Ozawa. I mean,
That's a great film.
but the same thing. I mean, but I'm not saying Monster Ball was a piece of shit. It was a
right.
great movie.
Okay.
I thought it was a great movie, but I think it failed in a lot of points that American movies usually fail in. And
Right.
number one was
No,
Hollywood
Right.
movies.
Well, I would agree
they're
with you.
commercials.
I think that
all about-
I never meant to say. I was excited about Monsters Ball, and I thought everyone should see it. Just because it forces us to, it's yet another failure of American cinema to deal with interracial relationship, and the thing that excited me about talking about it was like, okay, here's another situation where they've tried to take that step in that direction, but they must end the film by insinuating some sort of inability to truly, there's that underlying thing of darkness, about, and so I've never, I don't mean to suggest that film is a great film, it's like, it's not a great film, it's a really stupid film in the sense that it can't get out of the whatever. But I do think that it's provocative. It's very provocative.
I agree. I mean, I agree. When I saw it, I thought there are a lot of flaws in it, but it was a good enough film where you cared about the flaws, as opposed to the brain candy that were showed. I mean,
I mean, that's the sad fact. Is we start to think about these films as like teachers, and we start to think about them like going, "Oh, I can use this." Like I can show people like, "Oh, here is." So all the plotting stuff, like really starts to appear, workable.
just totally full of shit. Like,
Totally would.
it's complete crap.
What is?
The whole works. I mean, so by that logic,
There are no good films.
you know, say
We just watch The Big Lebowski and be like, hey, that was there was an amusing quip there, an amusing quip there.
oh, if you're saying, okay, let's take
okay,
Lebowski.
now it's over.
Listen.
Okay.
Let's take Lebowski. And say Lebowski's an amusing movie for most people.
Here and there.
I liked
Yeah.
it. I thought it was a good movie.
All right. So, Howard Hawks, for instance, legendary director, made some horseshit film.